Hi there, my name is Sean Humphreys with Take Charge of Change. Thank you for taking the time to view this presentation, Handling 24/7 News and Noise. We've put together this particular presentation because I think it's very relevant to the current age that we live in. I think at least at a gut level or a base level, a lot of folks are just thinking to themselves, it seems like the pace of change is just speeding up rapidly. There's just so much information coming at us all the time, and a lot of people are feeling a little bit overwhelmed, and I think sometimes it impacts on the quality of the decisions that they make in their life, and I think a lot of that's true. So I want to talk about some strategies on how to handle the sheer volume of information and noise, often negative noise, that's coming at us, so we can be a little more intentional, a little more proactive on how we deal with a 24/7 news and information environment. So let's just take a look at that. This particular symbol you see here, the Chinese symbol for change, is an interesting symbol because it has a couple of meanings. One is we do live in a world of change, constant change, and I think that we'd all agree that it seems like the rate of change is quickening. But the other meaning of this symbol is the fact that within change is opportunity. But one of the interesting things about change and opportunity is that we need to have the skill sets, and I think really the psychological, emotional, and cognitive powers and skills to take advantage of the changes that are going on. So a lot of people, their dominant experience is overwhelm or maybe anxieties that go through change. But there's a group of people that actually are able to embrace change when they go through it, but not just embrace change, but see the opportunity within that change. But that does take some intentional practice and training in the areas of psychological, cognitive, and emotional resiliency. So let's just talk about the notion of change a little bit, or at least some other points that sort of tie into this theme. I think that one of the biggest things to think about and why this area is important is that we all have missions in our life, and I guess my question to you is, what is your mission? What are you trying to accomplish? In this particular photograph, you've got a football player, a fullback that was charging towards the goal line, made a bit of a leap, and in the midst of that leap, the ball was stripped from him. So that football team had a clear mission to get across the goal line. That mission was deferred or deterred by the other football team. Now, if that team is properly equipped and trained, they'll probably be able to bounce back from that temporary diversion from what they wanted to accomplish. That they'll be able to rally the troops again, and maybe it will not be a game changer or a momentum changer in that football game. But other teams may not be trained quite as well in the cognitive, emotional, and psychological area, and it may in fact be a game changer. The other team may in fact win and change the flow of the game because of that. And in our own lives, we have various missions, and depending on how strong we are psychologically, emotionally, or cognitively, we may be derailed from our missions. We may not get the success that we want, and so as a consequence, fortifying ourselves in this area, in cognitive resiliency, emotional resiliency, and psychological resiliency, as an example, is very, very important. So here's what I want you to ponder. Really, what is your mission? It could be to be a great parent. It could be to improve your health. Maybe that's deteriorate a little bit. It could be meeting your company's sales targets as a sales manager or salesperson or VP of sales in your organization. It could be saving the environment, a grander and larger mission, or leaving a legacy. So really at this point, I want you to write down just some of the main missions in your life. There's multiple missions, but there could be an overarching purpose in your life as well. Now, the image you see in front of you is the microchip. And the microchip, interesting enough, has had a profound impact on this whole notion of change and 24/7 news information. 30 plus years ago, when Moore hypothesized, Moore was one of the original developers and innovators in the area of the microchip, and he hypothesized that every 18 months the computing capacity or power of the microchip would double. And in fact, when you look back over the years, that's taken place. So for the same dollar, the computing power every 18 months doubled. It's extraordinary. Or you could have the price of the computing power come down in half for the same computing power. So we've seen an incredible change in almost every area of life, and I think a lot of that's been driven by the power of the microchip, by technology and computer, by social media, by the power of the internet and technology, and of course Apple and other technological pioneers have really revolutionized our lives. And every area is impacted by technology. Not just economics or capital markets, That's just the way we handle the flow of information. The arts have been impacted. If you look at the music industry, how it's impacted, the publishing industry now is being impacted. Families are being impacted. The access to data and information is just absolutely extraordinary. And it's accelerating, really accelerating the pace of change in our worlds. Now, why this is important is that when you see an acceleration of change and a volume of information coming at us that's accelerating, it does have an impact on our ability to function cognitively in terms of how our brain works. So, if you look at the amount of information that someone reading the New York Times is exposed to over a 2-week period today, that's more information than somebody living in the 1700s was exposed to over the whole stretch of their lifetime. That's just one example of just the change in volume of information. The other thing is the immediacy of the information is absolutely amazing. So it's always there, and there's a constant bombardment of information our way. Now, why it's a challenge is that a lot of that information tends to be a negative, and the reason for it is that the great purveyors of information, the great distributors and producers of information in our world are doing it for obviously profit. And so if you look at the particular media, whether it's print media or whether it's radio, television, internet, news channels as an example, they know that the way they get our attention is by creating anxiety or fear or some negative arousal. And they do that by basically focusing on things that catch our attention. And it's getting more and more dramatic. The more terrible the incident, the worse the news, the more it's going to get our attention. And we sometimes wonder, why is it that negative news, pessimistic news, gets far more attention than the positive news? And one of the reasons is we're wired to pay attention to the negative news. The amygdala, which is part of our brain, is a survival mechanism. It's part of the brain that attunes us to things that we should be fearful of, anxiety-producing things, because it might be a matter of surviving or not surviving. The problem is a lot of the information that creates that arousal of fear or anxiety or tension, concern, may not be life or death kinds of situations, but it's constantly there. So as that information comes at us, it stimulates our amygdala to go into action, and as it does that, it creates a bit of that fight or flight response, and all of a sudden our pituitary gland gets involved from signals from our brain, and then it sends messages down to our adrenal glands. There's a release of adrenaline. It's just one of the many hormones that might get released. It could be cortisol or others. And all of a sudden, as we go into this fight or flight response, it actually diminishes our cognitive capacities because our vision, our focus ends up becoming much more narrow. So when we're looking at decisions and trying to come to conclusions on things, rather than looking at the grand sweep of all the information that's necessary for us to come to conclusions, we begin to look at very, very narrow pieces of information. I know that in my experience in the investment markets and working with clients is that there are many things that you can be positive about, but what clients will tend to be focused on is all that bombardment of negative information. And what happens is they're so focused on those pieces that it's very hard for them to lift up their focus to all the other things that may drive the markets and lead to maybe potential success in their portfolios over time. Now when that happens, it makes it difficult for them to make good decisions. And so the decisions made are often based on emotion far more than they are on cognitively what is the right decision to make in that moment. What's a high probability bet that I should begin pursuing? So the amygdala has a huge impact on us. It gets our attention. Unfortunately, because of that, it narrows our focus, and we don't always look at all the information necessary. The other thing that happens is that the amygdala almost overrides our brain. You know, we make good decisions to the extent that we rely on our prefrontal cortex, which is basically the executive function of our brain. That's the part of the brain that looks at all the information, weighs the pros and cons. It helps us kind of make those good decisions. It's the part of the brain that we may think we want to do something, but it's the part of the brain that kind of halts some of the things we may want to say, some of the actions we may want to take, because we understand that there's far worse implications if we actually act on our impulses than we really want to go through. So when the amygdala is in full engagement, it may keep us from tapping into our prefrontal cortex. That's one of the reasons why good decisions in that state often are not made. So it's very important that we key in on this and become conscious of how do we promote more decision making by the prefrontal cortex. What do we do during times of stress or anxiety or dealing with this information flow that's maybe negative coming at us all the time? So what gets your attention? Well, it could be volatile stock markets, it could be bad economic news, which seem to be really big ones for people these days. The pace of change in your work, in your environment, your community. It could be war issues, and there could be personal transitions and change in your own personal life that are getting your attention, getting you down, and maybe there's some areas that are a real struggle for you as you look at the changes going on for you personally. One of the things when you talk about changes that we go through is as we age, there is an impact on our energy reservoir, how much information or how much energy we have available to get the things done that we want to accomplish over the stretch of our life. This red line that I've just put up for you, if you go from left to right, you look at age, and so as we age, and I've got a crossover point that's vertical there at about age 30. So over the span of life, going up to, let's say, roughly 30 to mid-30s to maybe 40, we have great energy, increasing energy. But as we get older, let's say into our 40s and early 50s, our energy reservoir or ability to muster up energy begins to diminish. And that's aging. I mean, there's things that we can do to certainly push out that energy decline. But the reality is as we age, we do see some diminished capacity to have energy that we can bring to the various issues in our life. So when we look at that energy going down, the irony is that at the same time our energy is going down, the blue line represents the demands on our energy. And as we go through our life cycle, we go through some pretty major transitions and changes. So as we get older and go through this life cycle period, we get our educations, maybe we start a family, we start our careers, and at the time that our energy is beginning to go down, that crossover point is often hitting at a point where maybe we have aging parents that we have to deal with, maybe our kids are still at home or just starting university. We have lots of financial commitments because we're tending to deal with maybe aging parents, and at the same time we're dealing with kids with lots of expenses. And often too we might be really stretched at work as some of our most responsible, demanding peak earning years in our careers might be in our 40s and 50s, late 50s. And yet at the same time our energy is declining. And while those things are happening, keep in mind that we've got that impact of the microchip, we've got dramatic change going on in the world around us, and we've got all this information coming our way. Should it be any surprise that a lot of people feel an overwhelm? If you look at the largest demographic group out there, it's the baby boomers, who the oldest of which are past 65. The younger group, which I'm part of that cohort in their early 50s, feel like there's lots going on, and there is, and they're having to deal with that as their energy capacity becomes more and more diminished. And that's why this area is so important to key into. So what are some of the strategies that we can take a look at? This is not an exhaustive list, obviously, and I'm just giving you some basic pointers that you can think about, and then if you want to drill down into the more detail, my encouragement to you is begin getting information, do research, touch base with our practice at Take Charge of Change. We've got some seminars and workshops and information that can help people in this area. So the first thing is cultivate an attitude of gratitude. When you look at people who look at the brain and look at imaging, and the different imaging that talks about and demonstrates that we've got a brain that basically is a healthy brain, that it's a brain that is in a good state for making decisions and enjoying life and experiencing fulfillment and happiness. One of the most important things we can do is to actively cultivate an attitude of gratitude, to be thankful for the things we have in our world. Not always to be complaining, but to look at all the blessings that we experience in life, and that has a practical, very tangible impact on our ability to make better decisions and to be more resilient in a period of 24/7 news information. The second thing is take time to reflect and journal. The people that are very good at being resilient through periods of change are people that also learn through those periods of change. And you can do that by reflecting, pausing, and journaling. There's nothing more powerful than spending some time writing down what these experiences are doing to you and how they're impacting you, and then what you can learn from them. And as you reflect back in your journal, you can see little life lessons that you can begin applying. And you can see the meaning within those periods of change. So successful changers, successful people who get through periods of transition change that are resilient through it are journalers and are reflectors. Number 3, practice mindfulness. It's very important as we go through these periods of change is that this negative news that we're constantly impacted by causes us to sometimes have regrets of the past or fears of the future. And the way that you get around that is to be present. Just focus on the here and now. What are you supposed to be attending to now? When you're engaged in a relationship, really listen to that person. Don't be thinking about what you need to say, that witty comeback that you want to come back with when they're talking to you. Be present. Be very present when you're eating, and enjoy what you're eating. Enjoy the conversations. Enjoy the people you're with. When you need to get something done, enjoy the ability to be focused on a project and be present. So the cultivation of mindfulness, which is a whole other topic, is a very, very important life discipline to cultivate. Exercise. Well, we all know it. The challenge is to apply it. But exercise floods our brain with new new blood that has lots of oxygen that helps cognitive function. Exercise provides a cascading of positive emotions and hormones that are helpful to our bodies and to our mind. And so regular exercise is absolutely critical for people who want to be successful in this time of change and transition, this 24/7 news world where you're doing some gentle stretching, you're doing some aerobic exercise, some strength training, you're going for walks, you're just engaged in exercise. Get out in nature. We are really designed to enjoy just the nature around us. Get out for a walk, leave the office, go into the forest and enjoy that, and you'll experience a renewal that will just be incredible. So if you're busy at work and you're getting caught up with deadlines you have to deal with, you're feeling stressed and anxious, sometimes the best thing to do is to stop what you're doing, get outside and go for a 10 or 15 minute walk. Then come back in, you'll feel much more refreshed. I know one of the things that I do, it's the exercise area, and I really view it as a combination of exercise and meditation or just disengagement, and that really is swimming. I love swimming. I find it very rejuvenating. It's almost like, because it's so technical as a sport and also a very relaxing kind of exercise, it completely removes you from your day-to-day, and it provides a very relaxing experience. It's powerful. Your diet can have a profound impact on your ability to be cognitively resilient and emotionally resilient. One quick thing is make sure that you're taking in enough omega-3 fats, and those would be your fish oils. It could be omega-3 fish oil tablets. It could be from a dietary standpoint, making sure you're integrating fish into your diet. Flaxseed oils, as an example. Make sure you're taking in appropriate omega-3 oils. Good for your brain, good for your hormonal production, which is helpful as well. It's good for lubrication of your body. I mean, this whole notion that not taking in fat is somehow healthy is a complete fallacy. Yes, you have to be very careful around omega-6 fats and vegetable oils, but make sure you're getting in those omega-3 fats. And again, like I said, whether it's coconut oils or flaxseed oils, make sure you attend to that area. Get a book that talks about healthy fats. Begin introducing that into your diet. The notion of play, I know in my own life, playing with my kids, when I really allow myself to do that, it's incredibly relaxing. We get too serious at times, and so as adults, we need to make sure that we're cultivating play in our life, just going out and having fun, disengaging, and make sure you build that into your schedule this week. And if the weekend's coming up, make sure you schedule time for your own personal play or just play with your kids. I remember a few years ago, one of my sons was really into Lego, and if I'd have a really stressful or busy day at work, I found one of the most relaxing things I could do was to go into his bedroom or the room where he had his Lego and just work on some of the projects that he had started that day. My wife would kind of laugh at me, but I got lost in those projects and found them very, very stress relieving and relaxing. And embrace your achievements. I think that if there's one discipline that you may want to start even today, is at the end of every day, remember, you've been flooded with all the negative stuff, things that you didn't do, the negative news that came your way. I would encourage you to, for 5 or 10 minutes, think about all the things that went well today. I had my workout. I was able to get through that project that's been on my desk for 3 or 4 days. I remember to kiss my wife before I left for work today and to really connect with the kids. Find those small wins. Write them down. Try to find 3 to 5 small wins that you did in your day. Reflect on them. Really bathe in them. Enjoy them. We need to protect our resiliency around this whole notion of change, and by doing that through whether it's remembering your achievements, playing, your exercise and diet, getting out in nature, practicing mindfulness, reflecting and journaling, and really having an attitude of gratitude, all of those things will be powerful strategies to help you be more effective in this time of 24/7 news information that's coming at us all of the time. Well, it's my hope that you found this presentation helpful. If you'd like more information, feel free to visit us at Take Charge of Change. It's www.takechargeofchange.com, and our phone number is area code 204-977-8026. We've got some information on the website, as well as we deliver keynote addresses, workshops, and seminars to organizations to help their staff and key people to be resilient during this incredible period of change. But within that change, like I said, is incredible opportunity.